Hello, welcome to Literaturaholic. In this video, we are going to discuss Alfred Tennyson as a representative poet of the Victorian Age. So, without wasting any time, let's dive into the video. Oh! Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for further updates. Thanks! The Victorian era is well known for its enrichment of knowledge, expansion of empire and growth of the economy. The age had a throbbing spirit of activity. In his famous poem, Ulysses, Tennyson reflects this indomitable spirit of the people of his society. In it, we notice that Ulysses has spent 20 years of his life in battles and adventure. He has seen and learnt many things, yet he is not satisfied. His thirst for knowledge is unquenchable. He comments, "How dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unfurnished, not to shine in use." His Victorian spirit is fully reflected when he says that even in old age his ambition is to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. The Victorian Age is also marked with a note of pessimism and frustration. People of the age felt exhausted with their never-ending race against time and longed for a life of settled order, stability and peace. Tennyson reflects this trend of the period in his poem, The Lotos Eaters. Here we see that after reaching the Lotos Island and eating Lotos fruits, the mariners are fascinated by the calm and quiet atmosphere of the island. Although still, they have a long way to go to reach their homeland, they wish to travel or struggle no more and plan to live in this island in a state of permanent rest, peace and tranquility. They express their disgust at the extremely toilsome life which they have so far lived. Hateful is the dark blue sky, vaulted o'er the dark blue sea, death is the end of life, ah, why should life all labor be? The Victorian Age was an age of great problems and conflicts which could not be easily resolved. But as they wanted to live in peace, they approached these problems obliquely and from the gentler angle of compromise in order to avoid any grave danger to their sense of equanimity. And Tennyson, being the representative poet of his times, embodies this spirit of compromise in his poetry more than any of his contemporaries. In his political opinions, Tennyson shared the views of an average Victorian who believed in the golden mean, a compromise between democracy and aristocracy. He believed in slow progress and shunned revolution. He expressed the necessity of change in his poem, Morte d'Arthur, "The old order changeth, yielding place to new and God fulfills himself in many ways lest one good custom should corrupt the world." In the field of sex, the Victorians sought a compromise between unbridled licentiousness of previous ages and the complete negation of the functions and purposes of nature. The Victorians permitted indulgence in sex but restricted its sphere to conjugal felicity and happy married life. Tennyson reflects this spirit of the age in his love poems by pointing out that true love can be found only in married life. In Tennyson's The Lady of Shalott, we are introduced to two young lovers walking together in the moonlight, but we are at once reassured by the statement that these two lovers were lately wed. During the Victorian Age, there was a great advancement of science. However, the impact of science did not shake the belief of the Victorians in religion, God and soul. They tried to reconcile science and religion. This is exactly what we find in Tennyson. Thus, in The Higher Pantheism, he proclaims his acceptance of the legitimate conclusion of science, but decisively rejects its further conclusion, which came to be that of the scientific materialists of the later part of the 19th century. God in law, say the wise, O soul, and let us rejoice, for if he thunders by law the thunder is yet his voice, law is God, say some, no God at all, says the fool, for all we have the power to see is a straight staff bent in a pool. In Memoriam, he insists that we must keep our faith despite the latest discoveries of science. He writes, strong Son of God, immortal love whom we, that have not seen they face, by faith, and faith alone, embrace believing where we cannot prove. Tennyson also spoke to his Victorian contemporaries about issues of urgent social and political concern. During the Victorian period, women were thought inferior to men. This faith of the Victorians in the subordinate position of women is expressed by Tennyson in Locksley Hall, weakness to be worth with weakness. Woman's pleasure, woman's pain, nature made them blinder, motions bounded in a shallower brain, woman is the lesser man, and all the passions, matched with mine, are as moonlight unto sunlight, and as water unto wine. In Locksley Hall, Tennyson satirizes the contemporary society of vanity, materialism or artificiality. Here the speaker's frustration over the social conventions is clear. He fell in love with his young cousin Amy, who also reciprocated his love. But her parents stood in the way of their love and married her off with a rich person because of the speaker's lack of wealth and social status. As a result, he, now, curses this social snobbery which suppresses the craving of human heart. Cursed be the social wants that sin against the strength of youth. Cursed be the social lies that warp us from the living truth. Cursed be the sickly form that err from honest nature's rule. Cursed be the gold that gilds the straightened forehead of the fool. In The Charge of the Light Brigade, he speaks out in favor of a controversial diplomatic maneuver, the disastrous charge on the Russian army by British troops in the Crimean War. Thus, Tennyson maintained a lively interest in the developments of his day, remaining deeply committed to reforming the society in which he lived and to which he gave voice. Tennyson was thus not, as one or another of his compeers, representative of the melody, wisdom, passion, or another partial phase of the Victorian era, but of the time itself, with its diverse elements in harmonious conjunction. In his verse, he is as truly the glass of fashion and the mould of the form of the Victorian generation in the 19th century as Spenser was of the Elizabethan court, Milton of the Protectorate and Pope of the reign of Queen Anne.